Okay, so it's a small group. I did receive messages from two people who said they were not going to be able to make it to the live, but we'll be sending out the recording. Um, so we will be going through, it will be recorded and I'll send it out so you can review as well. So without further ado, we're going to jump into habits for success, and we're going to talk about the science behind sustainable change on the focus of habits, getting them to actually stick, which is, of course, a challenge for most people, especially if you have a neurodivergent or ADHD brain. So what to expect during our half an hour or so time together? We're going to be focusing on research-backed frameworks that support lasting habit formation, not permanent perfection, lasting habit formation. So perfection, let's divorce perfection with lasting, okay? We're also going to focus on actionable strategies that you can implement today. And then focus, of course, on the importance and transformational power of accountability in habit development and what that looks like and how it can help you. So I would love to see in the chat, or you can come off mute and tell me how you currently track your habits, if you do at all. Is this something you keep in your head? Is it something that you write down in a notebook? Is it something that you have in an app? What does that look like?
I don't track my habits at all.
Okay. Okay. Yet.
Yeah.
But okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. That's kind of where you are right now. Okay. So when we talk about habits, I think it's important to understand how deeply they impact our day. So a recent study put out that 43% of our daily actions are performed out of habit. That's a lot of our day that we're taking and we're not even recognizing the action is habitual. A habit could be anything from sitting in a car and immediately putting a seatbelt on to even walking up to a front desk at an office just because it's out of habit and not even necessarily the process of the office. It's just kind of like a habit that you do because you've always walked up to an office desk at a doctor's office. It could even be, getting up first thing in the morning and you grab your phone and scroll. It could also be reaching for your full focus planner and looking at it at the beginning or the end of the day. There are lots of things that we do throughout our day that we don't even recognize as habits. So that goes to show how challenging it can actually be to implement new ones, because 43% of our day is already habit based. That's almost half. So when you're introducing new things or things that you want to do that align with your goals, it can be very challenging. So we're going to go on a little bit of a myth busting finding tour next. So how many days does it take to form a habit? There was research originally that people have really held on to, and they had said it takes 21 days. That is actually incorrect. The reality is that research shows it takes 66 days on average to create a habit. Now, that research, that average, is they figured out with a subset of people that it took anywhere from 18 days to over 200 days for people to create a habit. So that could mean something as small as making sure that you're drinking enough water throughout the day, to an exercise habit, to a sales-oriented, work-related habit. Habits can span across lots of different levels of our lives, right? So the reality of it is, though, it takes way more than 21 days most of the time. On average, it's 66. So that is 2 months, over 2 months, that you really do need to implement a habit. So before we start shaming ourselves if we don't get something in a week or 2 or even 3, when we start to lose momentum or motivation, it's really important for us to have that perspective. So how in the world are you supposed to start setting habits if it takes so gosh darn long? The reality is that you need to start from the beginning. What does habit even look like? The reality is that there's a little bit of a habit loop. There's the cue, maybe your alarm goes off. There's the routine or the trigger, and then the routine, which is the habitual behavior. So that is your alarm goes off, which is the trigger. The routine is that you hit snooze. The reward is that you feel like you're helping yourself or you're getting more sleep and your motivation around it. So your motivation might be like, I don't like to get up in the morning. So that might be your reward, is that you're just like laying in your warm, cozy bed. You don't want to do that anymore. It could mean it takes you about a month or 6 weeks or 2 months to move out of that immediately pressing snooze. Transformation doesn't happen overnight. So understanding how a habit happens is an important way to start. The cue, which is the trigger, the routine, the reward that you get from those actions. So how do we move from bad habits to grow into what we want with our new habits? The first step, James Clear talks about this. James Clear wrote a book called Atomic Habits. Highly recommend. It's a great book. There's an audiobook version if that's your jam too. And really focusing on habits shaping your identity, not the other way around. What does that look like? So oftentimes when people set goals, they say, I want to run a 5K race. Instead of focusing on like, I'm going to run every day, I'm going to do these actions because I want to be a runner. James Clear is saying it's important to tell yourself that your identity is being a runner. You are a runner. So instead of, I want to write more, as the example on here, if you want to write a book, you want to shift to, I'm a consistent writer. So if you have a planner, instead of I'll use the planner every morning, to I am someone who consistently plans my day. That is a part of my identity. That is who I am. This is an important part of me. So his focus and his backing is that habits shape our identity, not the other way around. Our identity does not shape our habits. That's important to know. So moving into wanting to be the person that has these habits, moving into that identity is important. So from there, we often think that once we get to the goal, we become that identity. So this is kind of this is right here is the mindset shift and the block that a lot of people have. We have to already have the mindset that we are runners, that we are writers, that we are people who optimize our own day, people that really want to feel comfortable in their home. I am somebody who regularly cleans and respects my environment. So I work through a cleaning system that I have throughout the week. So getting into that identity-based mindset is an important first step when it comes to creating habits. So I'll share this prompt over email when I send out the recording. But if you are somebody that works with ChatGPT to talk things through, if you're challenged by identity-based habits and thinking about what that is or what that could look like for you, this is a prompt you could use. So I want to shift my mindset from focusing on a goal to embodying the identity of someone who consistently achieves it. Please help me reframe my goal as an identity. For example, if my goal is to exercise more, help me see myself as someone who prioritizes fitness every day. If I want to write more, guide me to see myself as a consistent writer. So this is a way that you shift into the mindset of embodying the identity of what you want to achieve. So that's step one. Step two is systems over goals, which I know is wild coming from me, somebody who is super into goal setting. So systems over goals. This is a quote from Scott Adams. If you do something every day, it's a system. If you're waiting to achieve it someday in the future, it's a goal. The focus on building systems, it's really about repeatable processes. It's not just setting an outcome-based goal. So ultimately, systems create results, goals set the direction. So it's important to know that both are critical. So what does this look like? Instead of saying, I want to write a book, we're going to set up a system. I will write 200 words every morning after I make coffee. That is setting up a system for success. If you would like to become a person that does one cleaning habit in the morning, I instead of saying I want to clean in the morning, you're going to say I will do one cleaning task after I have breakfast. Maybe that's washing dishes, maybe that's sweeping the floor, maybe that's putting dishes in the dishwasher. But it's like I will do one cleaning task after I have breakfast. That is what I do. So setting up systems for yourself and making it easier. And we'll talk about environment in just a moment in step 3. This works and is important because systems help avoid motivation dependence by making behaviors automatic. I will say, as somebody with ADHD, motivation is something that on the surface, people sometimes see that I lack. I heard it a lot when I was working and growing up. It's not true. And if you hear this a lot, I'm here to tell you that that is not true. Sometimes what we have is a challenge with momentum. However, when we're going into a new system and a new habit with a new goal, we have motivation that plunges us in that direction for the first week, maybe 2, maybe 3, and then it wanes. The benefit of having systems that support it is that you're not relying on the motivation to keep you going. The momentum can keep going because you have the systems in place. Again, we're not focusing on perfection here. We're focusing on momentum and changes and systems that can support you long term. So systems over goals. So if you do something every day, it's a system. If you're waiting to achieve it someday in the future, that's a goal. That's also Scott Adams. So our intention here for step 2 is to create a system that will support you in your goal. So instead of saying, I want to get fit, create a system where I walk every day after lunch. I walk after lunch daily. It's very simple. It's accessible. Maybe you are already out. Maybe you have lots of sidewalks around your office or around your house, or maybe you have a walking pad under your desk, and maybe you walk every day after lunch. And a system that you can do for yourself is make it easier. Maybe you keep tennis shoes at work. Maybe you keep tennis shoes in your car so that when you go out and run errands, you're able to easily walk whenever you are able to, as a way to start. So step 3 is all about habit stacking and environmental design. So BJ Fogg talks a lot about this, if you want to look them up, the importance of habit stacking and environmental design. Why is my phone keep going off? Let me fix this. Okay. Habit stacking and environmental design is important because the environment helps you either make your habits and your systems easier, or it can make them a lot harder. And habit stacking really is there to make it easier to implement new habits, to layer them in with your existing ones. So from there, once we kind of think about how we can habit stacking is essentially something where you take an existing and you pair it. So for me, a habit stack I recently did was where I make coffee for myself every morning. I kept forgetting to take my medication, and it's a morning med. I need to take it in the morning with protein and like an actual meal. I kept forgetting or trying to remember if I did take it. So I got a pill box that says, Sunday through Saturday, and then I fill it up once a week. I kept putting it back in the cabinet so it would be off the counter. What I realized is that I forgot it was there and I kept forgetting. So it now stays next to where I start to prep my breakfast on the counter. So that's now a habit stack because I go into that kitchen every morning. I start my breakfast, I get water, start making coffee, and I pull out my medicine because it's right there. So that's a habit stack. And why this step is together is because you also think about what you can do to reduce friction to make those habits stick. I'll give you an example, is that I was putting my pills, I was keeping them in the pill bottle, putting them back in the cabinet. It wasn't easy to maintain that practice because it wasn't visually present for me. So not seeing it was a friction point. So I figured out a way to see my medication and put it on the counter. And the opposite is also true. Are there things that are not great for you to do or you would like to pause doing because it's too easy to do during the day? So these are the habits that you want to drop. Scrolling on your phone is always number one for a lot of people. Eating too much of a type of food, avoiding exercise. Is it just easier to not do something because it's difficult to do it in your environment? So if you say want to clean your bathroom, but all your bathroom cleaning supplies are in your garage in a difficult corner to get to, it's going to make it really hard for you to want to clean your bathroom. So that's a friction point. You need to make those more accessible in your environment. So I would love to hear in the chat if there's a situation that you're having with habits, implementing them. Is there something in your environment that is making it hard to complete it? Maybe you don't necessarily have a flow in a room. Maybe it's really chilly in your house right now. I will be honest, it's chilly in Western North Carolina and my HVAC is not doing great. So getting out of the bed in the morning can be a little tough. I will say on the other side of that, I have habits stacked for my workday shutdown where I set up my planner for the next day, identify what tasks need to be done, and then I set up my environment for the next morning where I raise my desk because I have a standing and lowering desk, and I put my treadmill underneath. So I start the day off walking. So I am committed, I'm standing on my treadmill, and I just immediately just start. Because I realized a friction point for me to start the day off walking was that my desk was already sitting down, and I come into my office because I work from home, and I sit down and I'm already down. I want to get back up because I'm tired. I just want to pull a blanket on my lap and start working. I would benefit from moving, intentional movement throughout my day. So I set myself up for success during my workday shutdown the night before and set everything up that way. Those are ways that I habit stack and then set up my office, focus on the environmental design. Okay. So we talked about this, habit stacking, attaching a new habit to a habit you already have to make it easier to remember. And the example here is after I brush my teeth, I will floss one tooth, just one. I'll start off with one. Or after I pour my morning coffee, I will review my top 3 priorities for the day. And then from there, when you think about implementing your habit stacks, you think about how you can optimize your surroundings. Do I leave my planner next to the coffee maker? Do I like to bring my coffee into my office when I'm done? What does that look like? Making it so you're not walking back and forth, making it easier for yourself. And this works because it really does leverage the existing routines that you have instead of relying on your willpower. Oftentimes people think that I should just be able to do something, and they do something that we call in the coaching world, which is they should all over themselves. I should do this, or I should be able to do this. I should be able to do this. The reality is that you're not setting yourself up for success and making it easier to happen. So that can be done through habit stacking. And then your environment does shape your behavior. And so if it is difficult for you to navigate around your room, for instance, if it's cluttered or if it has a lot of stuff in it and it's just not relaxing, it's going to be difficult for you to move through your day because that's where you start. So thinking about how you can support yourself in the environment and where you can leverage existing routines so you're not just relying on willpower. Okay. To summarize, basically step 1, identity-based habits focuses on who you are. I'm a runner. I am a writer. I am someone who prioritizes and optimizes and plans their day. That was a full sentence. Step 2 is systems over goals, what you do. Step 3 is how you make it stick through habit stacking and environmental design. Who you are, what you do, how you make it stick. So the key takeaway for this part is if you don't rise to your goals, you fall. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your systems. If your systems aren't working for you, your goals are not going to get hit. So I want to talk a little bit about Sandy. She was one of my clients. She really struggled with a couple of things, and we started working together because of them. And she was struggling with distractions, focus, rabbit holes. She didn't have structured routines. And her work-life balance, while I'm not somebody who believes that work-life balance is a full-on thing, everything was bleeding into the other, especially her business with her family time. So her turning point for her was she realized if she was going to be able to grow her business, she needed to be more in focus and control over her days. So Sandy's change, I should say, is she started habit tracking. And that led to her identifying her distractions and her energy cycles. Number 2, she implemented habit stacking, very small, sustainable changes that she was able to make within her existing routine. And then finally, she focused on her self-awareness. What does a dopamine boost look like for Sandy? Is it necessary? What does it look like to have an ideal day? What are the components of that? What did she need, essentially, to be successful? One of her biggest realizations that came from these exercises was she thought she could just change. She thought we would start working together and it would be immediate. It wasn't that easy. She had to be very intentional and create systems. The key thing in here is create systems. So key habit shifts for Sandy that she implemented, there were 3. One is she replaced social media scrolling with intentional planning. She created structured startup rituals. Those are 2 big things that she implemented over the course of our work together. From there, she used movement and fidgets to refocus, and then also scheduled energy boosting activities midday. Our bodies have natural circadian rhythms where in the afternoon we hit a little bit of a slump. That's normal. So what she did is made it so in certain afternoons, that's when she would rock around the block. That's when she would go to a exercise class. So she made those a priority. And number 3 was about office and environment design. She focused on creating a distraction-free workspace. She cleaned out her office, and she also implemented visual habit cues so that she knew what her next step was when she got into the office, instead of being distracted with whatever came through on her email. So the key changes in summary that worked for Sandy, there were 3 main ones that she was able to work on solo. The morning routine, the dopamine management and breaks, office and environment design, and number 4 actually that was working with me was the role of accountability. Accountability is a big part of that. So oftentimes when people talk about accountability, and Sandy was no exception, we are challenged by it. Sometimes we have accountability partners and they don't really go anywhere. They're not helpful or productive. The interesting thing is that if you do have an accountant, there was a study that was done with Association for Talent Development where they realized that if you do have somebody or a group that you're accountable to, you are 65% more likely to stick to that habit when you share it with others. You're also 95% success rate with scheduled accountability check-ins. That's insane. That is insane. So the problem, let's see if I have it on the other slide. Nope, I don't. The challenge that people face when it comes to accountability, the difference between the 65 and 95% and the one that you have with another group of people that doesn't seem to go anywhere, is that they realize that people that you have accountability with matter. So if you believe that the other person has your best intentions, is pushing you, and you respect them, you have a higher chance of actually having phenomenal results with an accountability partner. But if you believe that, well, not even if you believe, if you don't respect them, if you don't feel like they have your best intentions at heart or your best like future in mind, it's not going to matter. If you feel like you don't matter to your accountability person, it won't matter. So the role of accountability has a big part of that. The key takeaway here is if you don't track it or tell someone, it's not going to stick. If you are able to make that work, awesome. I'd love to chat and hear about how you make that work solo without telling a soul. Some people swear by it. That's what they do. They have a transformation that is solo. Most of us are not on that path. So Sandy's outcomes after all of this work that she did and that we worked together on, she became more productive with her work days and wasted less time. She had way more time with her family without work spilling into it. She was more control over her focus and her energy, which was a challenge. So she wasn't as reactive going into work and being in the work. And then she ultimately created a more sustainable business that allowed more growth. And she did a lot of that through habits. So what this comes down to is the right habits plus accountability equals long-term success. So we're going to do an exercise. Step 1, we're going to talk about, I would love to hear the chat, or you can come off mute and let me know what habit would improve your professional or personal life right now.
I don't know how to chat.
It's okay. You can just talk.
Oh, okay.
No problem.
I think establishing a morning routine to start my day.
Okay.
I'm all over the place. I don't get up routinely at the same time. It's different almost every day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get I take a medicine first thing in the morning. And if I don't get up at the same time, then it throws off the schedule for other medications. And I end up being in a mess. And I have to figure out how I can get all the medicine in with proper time frame in between each one.
Yeah.
And some of them are just like, vitamins and stuff, but you can't take everything all at once.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So that would
I think establishing that morning routine, like you said, with environmental kinds of situations, that and how to do it. I mean, your tips are excellent.
Yeah.
And I feel like I could follow that to make a difference in my routines.
Awesome. Awesome. So when you think about stepping it in as like an identity habit to develop, what could that look like, you think?
Well, instead of thinking, I messed up today.
Yeah.
I could think, particularly, it starts with the night before, getting to bed on time. So that would probably be the first step. And then waking up and saying, I have energy today. And I think about starting to meditate, but it's like if I have to commit to a time to do that.
Yeah.
In the routine, and I haven't done that.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so maybe I don't do that right away, but I establish a routine, number one, of getting up at a certain time every day to make that happen, and then follow up with, adding on to that routine.
Right.
Yeah.
Before we even get to the action and the systems, It's
Yeah.
important to think about the identity though. So like moving for, I want to get up in the morning and have a morning routine to, I am someone who, what?
Um, wakes up with energy and looking forward to the day,
Okay.
or something of that order.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great place to start. Yeah. I am someone who is excited for the day or wakes up and is excited for the day and intentionally intentionally plans. Ooh, sorry, even thinking kind of on the fly. I am someone who wakes up and is excited for the day and takes ownership of my day.
Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah,
Yeah, takes ownership of. I am someone who wakes up ready for the day and takes ownership of my day.
yeah. I make this happen.
Yeah, yeah.
I can
How does
make
that
this
sit?
morning a good day and be
Mhm.
excited to move on. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's great. Okay, so we've got step one for you. Step two is thinking about the habit, like the framework, which is like we've got our identity.
Right.
And then you were talking about getting into the system. So, what
Yeah,
repeatable?
one of the things that I do the night before is I plan what I'm going to wear the next day.
Yes.
I
That's,
dress in the bathroom because I like it kind of cool at night to sleep.
yeah.
So I have a little heater in the bathroom. So I have a turn
Mm.
that on so I can dress where it's a little cozy warm.
Yeah.
And, and so I'm setting myself up and I have my routine of washing my face in the morning and getting dressed
Mm-hmm.
and and I take that medicine, my thyroid medicine,
Yeah.
and I set my water and my medicine in the bathroom on the
Yeah.
I have a little tiny little bench that my mom always had in her bathroom and I have it. And so I have what I'm going to wear and the medicine right there.
That's
So I've
awesome.
established some routines, but the time management is
Mm.
what I'm lacking here, I think.
So, yeah, you talking that through, you clearly do have some routines.
Yeah,
Okay, that's awesome. So, how does that feel?
that feels great.
Good.
I'm
Yeah.
excited about trying your ideas
Yeah.
and because it's a mindset.
It is.
Yeah,
Yes. There's a lot of pieces to it though, right? Like
yeah,
mindset is one part. And like if you are the type of person who gets up excited a day and owns her day.
yeah,
You have a system for the bathroom to get up, wash your face and get dressed and take your first meds.
yeah,
And it sounds like there's other areas that you can have support on, but you do have a routine.
yeah,
So it's what you do after that. Is that where you get a little lost?
yeah. Then my day gets behind
Mm,
because I think I I think I'm gonna, when I look at my planner the night before,
mhm.
and sometimes I go down that rabbit hole of Facebook or something after I eat
Yeah.
dinner, and so I need to work on my routine, which I have at night. But again, it's a timing factor
Mm.
because if
Yeah.
I don't get my dishes done right away and you know get
Yeah.
the routine, then I go to bed too late and I sleep too late.
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
that shifts everything off for the next day. So
Ah, so your friction point, I think you identified a couple of things, which gets into, let's see. Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't something else bumping. So applying the framework, what would what would it look like to address the friction points that you mentioned, which were getting on Facebook, it sounds like too late,
yeah,
and putting off tasks?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So ways that, and because we don't want to just say, well, I just need to get off Facebook. I just need to do the dishes because it's not happening now. So that's focus, that's making motivation
Yeah.
the key driver. And we want to move away from that.
Yeah.
So that's something to think about next is what can you do to lessen the scroll? And it's different for everybody. For me, I have a trigger on my phone where it goes off after 15 minutes after I open the Facebook app.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And so I'm sure you might have family members that might be able to help you implement something like that, where it's like, oh, I've been scrolling for 15 minutes and I don't even realize it.
Yeah.
But that kind of brings me back, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a good way for me to be like, okay. And so that's a system that works for me.
Yeah.
And so,
And the only reason I even get on Facebook is because my grandchildren are on Facebook
yeah,
and they show pictures of my great grandchildren
yeah.
who
And you
live
like,
in other states and I don't get to see very often. And
right.
but then I
Yeah.
get sidetracked. So
Yep.
15 minutes I could see them and then stop. And
Yeah.
that's the hard part because I just lose track of time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So that could be something where you think about what could I do to support myself that's a repeatable process
Yeah.
that helps me own my day.
Yeah.
Going back to that ownership, that identity. What could I do to lessen my scrolling? Because you still want to see your great grandkids, which I think is awesome.
Right.
So, what can you do as a repeatable process that'll support your identity as you own your day?
Yeah. And if I look at it the next day, that's okay. I don't need
Yeah.
to, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then, so you've got your identity, you own your day, you've got your system in process, creating ways that you can make it so you're not scrolling for a long time at night or in the morning.
Yeah.
That throws off the time.
Yeah.
And so from here, are there things that you can do to attach this new habit
Yeah.
that is already existing? So,
Right.
like you said, you get up in the morning and you go through, you've got a little bit of a morning routine going already, which is awesome, by the way. So, what can you do to attach anything to it to help you propel forward?
Right. Right.
So, those are kind of the next steps.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, my question for you is there one small habit shift you can make today to improve your productivity or your day?
I try to have my dinner between 6 and 7,
Okay.
and then I need to, and that's when I kind of watch the news of the day
Mm-hmm.
and I might check what else might be on TV, but when I should plan to eat my supper and I do a lot of cooking for myself to eat healthy.
Yeah.
And I plan that ahead and I some days it's kind of crazy, but that's why I have, I make soup and put it in the freezer. I have things that I can just pull out and that
Warm
I
up.
made ahead of time. So I try to keep some meals in the freezer.
That's a system.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
system.
That's a system you already have.
Yeah. And then the next thing is, okay, clear my little area on the table and get the dishes done and the kitchen cleaned up right away.
Mm-hmm.
And if I let that go, then I'm doing that at 8 o'clock or 8:30, and then
Yeah.
my night routine gets shoved back, and
Right.
before I know it, it's 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that another friction point for you is in the evening after you eat, cleaning up after you eat.
Yeah,
Mm.
and not getting distracted by Facebook or TV.
Okay. Is there anything you can do on the side where you're listening to something that can help you shift into doing those actions. I know you and I have worked together before, so I'm shifting into what we've talked about with like dopamine use and stuff.
Yeah.
But what is there anything you can do to support that momentum to get you into cleaning up after dinner? And you don't have to answer that right now. That could be something that you ponder.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to find something that is more important than procrastination.
Well, it could even be like if I really enjoy podcasts. I listen to a lot of music, and sometimes I have certain playlists for cleaning up. And when that playlist comes on, I'm like, ooh, okay, it's time to get moving.
I could do that because I like at 7 o'clock, after my local news and stuff is over, I switch over to PBS NewsHour. That
Okay.
goes from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock.
Okay.
So I had a tree go down before Christmas, and I lost internet for 3 or 4 days, and it wiped out everything, and I had to start over. And took me some time to figure out how to do that on my own, because my daughter usually does that for my TV, and she was sick with the flu, and I was really worried about her, but she's fine now. And I finally figured out how to do it on the TV myself. But when I didn't have TV, I got the program on my phone, set it on top of my cabinet, and listen to PBS News while I wash the dishes.
Yeah.
And maybe I should do that rather than, I mean, it's nice to see them on the TV.
Right.
But I'm mostly listening, and I don't have to necessarily see their faces.
Yeah.
I just like their world news. And
that's fair.
And that's the only news I want to hear, because so much of the news is
difficult right now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy right now.
Yeah. So that's a good option, is letting yourself listen to it versus watching.
Right.
So that's a small habit shift you could do today.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. Thank you
Yeah,
for
I like that. And I can actually, because after it airs at 6 to 7, and then repeats on another channel from 7 to 8. So I think I can probably tune into watching it and also seeing it, like repeating the original one. And so if I want to see what's happening, I just glance over and look at it while I'm watching.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
I'm going to try that.
Okay. Make sure to email me and tell me how that goes.
Pardon?
I said, make sure to email me and tell me how that goes.
Oh, I will. I will.
Good. Good. Which is why I'm asking that, because my next question is, how can you stay accountable and on track? So I would love for you to email me tomorrow.
Okay.
Put that in your planner and tell me how it went.
I will.
Cool. Awesome.
I will.
Awesome. Okay.
All right.
Cool. So the last thing I want to hit on, so now that we have you set up, you've got your identity, like you own your day. You've got your system that you can implement today, which is really kind of all about listening to PBS NewsHour while you do the dishes, because that dishes were a friction point because you were delaying them.
They were a big friction point.
And that delayed you getting to bed.
Yeah.
And so you want to be able to wake up and be ready and refreshed and ready for the day to own it.
Right.
Let's get you moving. Okay. So the last thing I want to touch on that I'll be working on in March, which I'll send this recording out to those who were not able to make it today, is the Habit Mastery Lab, accountability that works.
Okay.
We talked all about habits today. And this is really what we'll be focusing on in the Habit Mastery Lab. And so we'll be publicly committing to your goals. And we know that that gives at least a 65% chance of completing them. And when you have an accountability partner, that increases your chances by 95%. And what we'll be doing in the Habit Mastery Lab is having structured systems, accountability partners with coaching, as well as science-backed habit strategies. This is not, you must do things exactly this way. This is, here's the science. Here's what you know has worked for you. Here's what hasn't. Let's figure it out together. So that's why it's a lab.
Yeah.
We're testing these things out. It's meant for those who are ready to achieve their goals through accountability on habits. And really, the ultimate goal is to go from feeling stagnant to momentum building. So
Yeah.
you can get to your desired outcomes. We'll help with identifying tools for success along the way, when to pivot versus having a setback, and give you accountability. So I ran a group like this in January, December and January, and got some great feedback. On the screen, this is Tara's wonderful testimonial. She came into the habit challenge wanting to wake up earlier. And after a conversation, we realized that she was actually wanting more movement in her day, is ultimately what it came down to. And she changed her habit goal and implemented movement throughout her day instead of trying to get it in all at once first thing in the morning, because that's a challenge for her, is getting up. So through the weekly group sessions, that gave her a chance to report on the good news and feel accomplished with other people to continue that momentum. And she said, she gave this testimonial recently, a couple of weeks ago, and she said, movement is still a normal part of my day now. And she sleeps in still, because that's Tara.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is an 8-week support. And so if anybody who is listening to this recording, it will be Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We'll have accountability calls on Monday. We'll go from that to weekly group education. So we'll talk about habits, growth, development. And then on Fridays, we'll have reflection. This is when the lab part really comes in. What worked this week? What did not work this week? What did we learn? What do we want to try to do next week that's different, if anything?
Yeah.
So there is the investment of $347, 2 payments of that. One is due at sign up and one is a month later. And then the first 3 signups do get a one-on-one session with me prior to starting the accountability. And so we can come up with a habit plan. So we can talk through what you're wanting to achieve. Because like Tara, she thought that she wanted to get up earlier to exercise. And after discussing things, she was like, I actually just want more time for movement. And it's like, okay, what does that look like? And figuring out what it looks like for her during the day. And so if that's something that interests you, you can always shoot me an email and let me know, and I can send you the link that has more information on that.
So when would you need first payment?
When you sign up,
Okay.
and the Habit Mastery Lab does start on March 10.
Okay.
So it's still about 2 weeks away.
Okay. I can swing that right.
Yeah.
I think I have enough to keep going, and
Awesome.
I will definitely look at this video again.
Awesome.
Probably several times because I'm a visual learner as well as a note taker, and I took very few notes and tried to listen more.
Yeah.
And so watching, having the visual and improving my notes and making it happen.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I am encouraged, very encouraged.
Good. No, that's great. Then that's the goal. Is I want you to feel like you have enough to pause.
Yes.
And take some action today.
Yeah.
That was the goal. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so I will sign off here. I'm so glad that you found this valuable. I will be sending out the recording in the next couple of days so you can have access to it.
Great. Thank you very much.